Lows and Highs of Adrien Agreste, the Miraculous Ladybug fanfiction written by Black Cat's Butterflies. Voice and record, Harpsigirl. Chapter 6. Miss Dupin-Chenk, you're exactly 8 minutes late to class, Mrs. Mendeleev scolded her as she walked through the door. May I see a pass? I don't have one, Marinette cringed. Sorry. Go sit down. I'm not happy. Hey, Alias said as Marinette slid into her seat. I wanted to film, but it was across town, right? Yep, Marinette sighed. I asked him to talk to the little girl and bring her home. She whispered and Alia nodded. She took out her textbook and looked down at Adrien's seat. She tapped Nino's shoulder with her pencil. Where's Adrien? No clue, he replied. I assumed he was with you. I texted him like 4 times. Weird, Alia said. Last minute photo shoot? He would have told me if that was the case. But it's fine. This happens every so often with him. Nino shrugged. Mr. Laif, turn around and listen up before I give you free detention on Saturday. Okay, I'm sorry. Marinette worried her lip. It couldn't be what she thought it was. It was just another coincidence, that's all. Besides, if Adrien was Chanois, he would be back by now. The little girl who was akumatized lived right next to where the fight took place. He would only be 1 or 2 minutes behind her. Sorry, I was, on the phone with my father's secretary. Yeah, Natalie. Yeah, said the boy burst into the classroom. Adrien, I understand that you have a heavy work schedule. No, not about work. You know, the thing, Adrien said. The thing, Mrs. Mendeleev raised an eyebrow. Yes, what the nurse told you about? Oh, my apologies, please sit down. Just a coincidence. Adrien was not Chanois. He was probably just running behind, right? There had to be another explanation for this. She should ask, right? Yeah, she should ask. Mrs. Mendeleev turned around to write something on the board, and Marinette saw him grin before Adrien settled in his seat. She whipped her phone out. Okay, fess up. Adrien's phone, which was lying on his desk, lit up with a notification. He picked it up and put it in his lap. What? I saw that smirk. You weren't on the phone with Natalie. Were you? He turned around to make eye contact with her, grinning. Marinette smiled back. Is it that obvious? I know you well. That you do. Yeah, I was taking a nap during lunch. Slept in a bit. So what you're telling me right now is that you used T1D as an excuse. Adrien Agreste, you're a fucking genius. Thank you. You see, not only does it get me out of stuff, but it also makes the teachers feel bad. And therefore, they can't yell at me without the massive guilt of yelling at a disabled child. Not fair. I want a brilliant excuse like that. Don't worry. I'll trade you any day. Marinette frowned. Believe me, I wish I could take it away. Adrien turned around again to study her. Once seeing she was serious, he furrowed his brows. She nodded subtly and put her phone back in her pocket as she watched him type out a response. Adrien, phone away now, Mrs. Mendeleev pointed to him. Adrien dropped his phone and raised his hands in the air defensively. It was Natalie again. Marinette giggled and Adrien turned again to grin at her. What's so funny about that, Miss Dupin-Chenk? The teacher snapped. Nothing, Marinette said, hiding her smile. I'm sorry. If you don't stop laughing, then you'll be making your way to the principal's office. Yes, Mrs. Mendeleev. And Adrien, please finish your conversation quickly. She turned around again. Yes, I'll do that right now. Thanks, Marinette. She tried to prevent the small squeal that came through her throat when she saw the heart he sent. She was mostly successful. In the past 5 days since Marinette had learned Adrien had diabetes, she had never once seen him giving himself a shot. Not at school, not the time he had come over for lunch, not the time they ate the last of her macaroons together after school, not on patrol. Stop that! Adrien is not Chanois. Each time he had excused himself to the bathroom to give himself insulin, which was fine with her. She was squeamish around needles. And plus, that was a very private part of Adrien's life. She shouldn't expect him to be that comfortable around her with that just because he told her he had T1D. But she wouldn't be lying to say she was morbidly curious. She'd seen what the pen looked like, but not how it worked at all. But she'd leave it alone for now. What? Adrien asked her as they walked back to the bakery that Friday. Since he'd been diagnosed, Gabrielle had actually been laid back. No more fencing for the time being, and he was allowed to chill with friends during those hours. She guessed he didn't want Adrien doing physical activity, and wouldn't doubt it if Natalie convinced him to let Adrien out of the house for mental health reasons. What? Marinette asked. What are you thinking about? Nothing. Just about your little guilt-tripping session from yesterday. She grinned and Adrien laughed. Yeah, I feel bad lying, but I was really busy during lunch and lost track of time. I thought you were asleep, Marinette said skeptically. Yeah, I was kidding, he replied quickly. Okay, but that's not what you were thinking about, right? She started. Marinette? I'm just thinking about your diagnosis, you know. Like, it must have been really scary, right? Yeah, it was, he confessed. The doctors misdiagnosed me like 3 times. They reached the back door of the bakery, which leads straight to Marinette's apartment. With what? She asked as she unlocked the door. Mono, strep, vitamin deficiency? Really? Mono? She said, raising an eyebrow. Who've you been kissing? She joked. They started walking up the stairs. Ha! Adrien grinned. I'll let you know when it happens. Marinette stopped short, almost tripping over her own feet. Really? She said. You've never kissed anyone before? I mean, not that I remember. Not Chanois. What? Marinette's eyes went wide. Adrien's followed soon after. I mean, no, wait. He backtracked. I had my first kiss when I was a little kid, you know. Didn't mean anything. We were like 6. She could tell he was lying. She didn't comment on it for his sanity, nor hers. She cleared her throat. Yeah, okay. What about Kagami? They resumed walking and reached the main floor. She headed to the kitchen to grab them a snack. Well, I gotta be honest, I didn't really like her that much. Really? No. I mean, she's great, but she wasn't the one for me. We were too similar. I get that. Marinette? Yeah, she responded, grabbing stuff from the fridge. It's not 3 p.m. for another hour. I can't have a snack yet. Not with carbs, you can't. She smiled, pulling out a few cheese sticks. I looked it up. Cheese has no carbs. Adrien gave her a goofy smile. You're the best, Marinette. She giggled. Wanna watch a movie? Sure. Hey, Chaton, Ladybug said, plopping down next to him. Why, hello, my lady. How are you on this fine evening? He bent into a bow and Ladybug chuckled. I'm doing perfect, she replied, a smile of mirth gracing her face. Le gasp! Chat placed his hand over his heart in mock astonishment and Ladybug snorted. You actually made a cat pun. If you can beat them, then join them. She shrugged and her partner wrapped his arms around her shoulders. I missed you, he sighed, squeezing her tight. I saw you yesterday during the Akuma attack, she answered. Yeah, exactly, Shad said. During a fight. We didn't even get to talk. You had to leave so quickly. I'm sorry about that, Ladybug frowned as they separated from the hag. I was really late for class. I almost got detention. Ugh, same. But I was smart about my excuse this time. I couldn't come up with one good enough, she pouted. Well, my lady, you see, all my teachers feel inclined to give me a lesion now. Oh, and why would that be? She felt a pit in her stomach. Why was she encouraging him to tell her? Don't say it, don't say it, don't say it, don't say it. Having a chronic illness has its perks, he laughed. God freaking... He's not Adrien Agreste. Get a grip, Marinette. Oh, really? Yeah, for instance, he continued, not noticing her tense and panicked face. Did you know I can skip the lines at amusements park? I've never been to Disney or anything, but I guess it could be fun. He turned to her. We should go together sometime. Yeah, two superheroes at one of the most public places on earth, she said, gathering her composure. That will work out just fine. Shad laughed. To be fair, we'd probably get to skip the lines anyway. It's the least they could do for the heroes of Paris. Right, she snorted again. All I'm saying is it could work. Add it to the list of the things we do after defeating Hawkmoth. Will do. He smiled, and they sat in a comfortable silence watching the sunset. Marinette studied his figure, taking it in. She knew the structure of his nose, his chin, his jaw. She knew the curve of his lips as they melted into a soft smile. She knew the way his eyebrows furrowed when he was concerned, and the way his cheeks flushed when he was flustered. She spent multiple hours staring at this figure, whether he was Adrien or not. She would never admit that. She knew it well and could probably draw him from memory. It was familiar, and the rational part of her brain was telling her, no. No, you can't know. You're not supposed to know. You need to keep him safe, now more than ever. Could she really deny what was in front of her, though? She would sure try. There sure have been a lot of Akumas lately, Shad said, breaking the silence, and Ladybug had to rebut. Yep, she responded. What has it been, one every day? Since I got back, yeah, he nodded. You only had to deal with 2 or 3 while I was gone, right? 3, she confirmed. It was the weirdest thing. I bet Hawkmoth didn't want to send them out if there was only one of us. Because then he'd only get one Miraculous? Mm-hmm. That man's plain stupid, he rolled his eyes. It would probably be easier to capture one of us rather than both. True, but I'm not complaining. Another silence. Ladybug laid her head on his shoulder, sighing. He wrapped his arm around her. The sun had almost set. You're my best friend, Ladybug whispered. It was the faintest noise, and if he wasn't transformed, there was a high chance he wouldn't have even heard it. His ears twitched, and he peered down at her. She looked back up. I love you, she said, and he smiled, eyes soft. They were so green. I love you too, he squeezed her shoulder. She wanted to kiss him. She refrained. What happened to you? She said instead. While you were gone, what can I do? I'm afraid you can't do anything, he shrugged. It's not going away anytime soon, or ever. All I can do is try my best to manage it and hope they find a cure within my lifetime. They probably won't. His face was gloomy, and he missed the chance to use at least 3 puns in that sentence. Never had she been so concerned in her life. Have you cried yet? What? Have you cried? She said again. You're always laughing and joking, but I've never seen you cry before, and I feel like you hold all of it in, like something or someone makes you feel like you can't. He stared at her. It's healthy to cry, she told him. You have to, or else it won't stop hurting. He started. I did for a bit, in the hospital, for a minute or two. That was a month ago, you said. Yeah. She grabbed his cheek, stroking them with her thumbs. Shad, can you do me a favor? He nodded. Anything. I want you to let it out, she said. You don't have to say anything, not if you don't want to, and I stay quiet too, but just let it out. They looked at each other for a moment before Shad's eye brimmed with tears and he nodded slowly. She watched his face morph into an expression she'd never seen before. Not on him or, if her suspicion were correct, on Adrien. Then a drop slid down his cheek. She wiped it away with her glove. Shad collapsed into her arms. She held him close. He heaved into her chest, shaking, and she did her best to soothe him, rubbing repetitive circles into his back. She could tell this was the release. The first time he had really broken his composure. Ladybug was right. He wasn't dealing with this healthily at all. It's not fair, he said between gasps of Why? Why me? What did I do? He pleaded to her, pulling away to look at her face. Why does the world think I deserve this? Her heart broke, and she started to cry too. She couldn't answer him with anything other than a quiet, "You don't." That only made him sob harder. They stayed there for another hour, just crying in the comfort of each other's embraces. She couldn't take this away from him, couldn't stop him from hurting, but she could try to help him cope.